This is Fountain
Every
Street
week I find
Church.
it hard to find the best ones, but somehow, like I said, you'll hear what I'm trying to say even when the words
Here,
aren't right.
we strive to free the mind, grow the soul, and change the world. Here, there is freedom to doubt and freedom to believe. Here, you can find a house of prayer for all people.
The swallow up Jonah.
Welcome to Fountain Street Church. Join us on the journey.
I was younger, just a bad little kid. My mama noticed funny things I did, like shooting puppies with a BB gun. I'd poison guppies, and then when I was done, I'd find a little pussycat and bash in its head. That's when my mama said, "What did she say?" She said, "My boy, I think someday you'll find a way to make your natural tendencies pay. You'll be a dentist. You have a talent for causing things pain. Son, be a dentist. People will pay you to be inhumane. Your temperament's wrong for the priesthood, and teaching would suit you still less. Son, be a dentist. You'll be a success." Here he is, folks, the leader of the plaque. Watch him suck up that gas. Oh my gosh. He's a dentist, but he'll never be any good. Who wants their teeth done by the Marquis de Sade? They say that hurts. Oh, I'm not numb, and I say, shut up, open wide, here I come. I am your dentist, and I enjoy the career that I picked. I'm your dentist, and I get off on the pain I inflict. When I start extracting your molars, you all will be screaming like holy rollers. Dentist. And though it may cause my patients distress, somewhere in heaven above me, I know my mama's proud of me. 'Cause I'm your dentist and a success. Say ah. Say ah. Say ah. Now spit.
Yeah, I gotta say that was rather more disturbing than you expect to hear in church on Sunday, even if you weren't a dentist. Let's be honest, that song is a little bit creepy as well as a little bit funny, and saying kind of uncomfortable things, yet you laughed, because I think there's a truth inside it that, well, we know it's there. That's precisely why I wanted to hear it, because, long ago I heard an insight from the great philosopher Alfred North Whitehead, who observed in one of his books that great ideas enter reality with evil associates and disgusting alliances. In other words, the first time you hear a truth, it probably comes along with bad company. So in listening to the song, we felt the evil and the disgust for sure. But where's the great idea? Well, that's what I'm going to try to do this morning, is find the good idea lurking in the life of Oren Scrivello, DDS. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be found true in thy sight, thou who art my rock and my Redeemer. So I'm exploring evil and sin and other unpleasant facts this Lent. In the early years of the Christian church, most baptisms were adult baptisms, which meant you had to prepare for it, and Lent was set aside to prepare for adult baptism because on Easter Eve, that night before, you would be baptized. So on Easter morning, you could have your first communion. And so that meant if you were preparing to enter the church, you would be thinking deep deep thoughts and repenting of one's sins. Could anything be further from the way we do things here? And yet, liberal religion is often, I think, rightly criticized for being a little unrealistic about evil and sin. So Lent seems like the perfect time for even religious liberals to take stock of the unpleasant facts. In the last 2 weeks, I started by noting, at least, that our human nature is at the very least equivocal. It's neither bad nor good, but somewhere in between, darkly wise and rudely great, as the poet Alexander Pope put it. So if we're not totally depraved, as Calvinism likes to say, we're susceptible to a little depravity now and then, aren't we? And then last week I used Joseph Conrad's book, Heart of Darkness, to talk about how even good people can succumb to evil, not because they're so proud of themselves, but because they think, well, I'm just like everyone else. How bad can I be? And it turns out that banality is the path to evil if we're not careful. So this week, where am I going? I'm going to talk about rotten people. They do exist. In fiction, certainly, or they could exist in reality. The one that came to mind to me this week as I was pondering was a man you may not remember named Lawrence Russell Brewer. 15 years ago in 1998, he rounded up a couple of his friends. They picked up a black man in Texas by the name of James Byrd. They beat him up, tied him to the back of his truck, and dragged him for 3 miles until his body fell apart. And I'm telling you that because if you can imagine a worse thing that one person could do to another, it's really hard. Here's why I'm mentioning him. He was interviewed on the day before he was executed, and he was asked about his acts, and he said, as far as any regrets, no. I have no regrets. I'd do it all over again, to tell you the truth. And that's probably more chilling than the act itself. There are people out there, and we've met them in the news or sometimes in person, who just don't care if they do harm. They might, in fact, enjoy the rush of power and control. Sociopaths are what we call them, but that's really too nice a word. But then again, most of the people who are sociopaths, as I've discovered by reading Martha Stout's book, The Sociopath Next Door, aren't going to drag you behind a truck. They're not going to pull your teeth without Novocaine. These are the people who, well, they were the bullies in school who couldn't resist lording it over you, or the bad girls, if you were in that part of the world. They were the cheats and liars at work who take advantage and then look back with an evil smile. We can load up the political retinue with a number of sociopaths. They populate our world. They populate literature and theater. And some of the best literature around sociopaths and our failed attempts to deal with them comes from another musical, West Side Story, where the juvenile delinquents called the Jets, who, while they're terrible human beings, can sing and dance fabulously, sing a mocking song about how the society treats them and how indifferent they are. I won't try to sing it. It requires 10 people and a band. But they're referring to their local police officer, Officer Krupke, and the man in the gang symbolically goes to court and then to a psychiatrist and finally to a social worker, where he says, "Dear kindly social worker, they say go get a job, like be a soda jerker, which means be like a slob. It's not I'm antisocial, I'm only anti-work. Glorioski, that's why I'm a jerk." And then the social worker reaches the summary conclusion we all knew was coming. "Officer Krupke, you've done it again. This boy don't need a job, he needs a year in the pen. It ain't just a question of misunderstood. Deep down inside him, he's no good." No good. We, who are progressive and liberal and optimistic, like to believe everyone can be redeemed. But what do we do when we encounter people that don't want to be redeemed, that would do it all over again, that were just no good? To work up to that answer, I'm going to go back to the year 1934, a dreary year in Europe and in America. But in this case, I'm thinking of a man who is living in London, but he's an expatriate American. He grew up in the dreary town of St. Louis. I know it's dreary because I lived there for 3.5 years, and it never got any better while I was there. He is actually a descendant of Puritans and good Unitarians. And when he went to England, he repudiated them all and became, in his own words, an Anglo-Catholic in religion, a classicist in literature, and a royalist in politics. His name was Thomas Stearns, or T.S. Eliot. And in the year 1934, during the Depression, he published a long poem that was supposed to be lyrics to a play called The Rock. So the poem is called Choruses from the Rock, and in it is this segment that I have remembered for 30 years because it stabbed right into the heart of liberal optimism.